What's up, everyone? Tyler Dunne here at Go Long. Thank you so much for reading all of our long form at golongtd.com and, of course, listening to all the podcast episodes. You're going to love this one. This is our latest edition of How the NFL Works. Had the pleasure of catching up with Atlanta Falcons guard Chris Lindstrom. He takes us right into his world in the trenches, the best guard in the NFL by so many metrics and just passing the eyeball test. Watch any Falcons game. Chris Lindstrom is absolutely mauling folks playing and play out. So it was great to kind of get inside of his mind and see how he does this all. The nitty gritty of his position is unlike any other profession. So you're going to love this one. And as always, we'd love it if you subscribed to Go Long to access every story, every podcast. We are completely powered by you. Thanks for making us your home for long form journalism and pro football. Enjoy Chris Lindstrom. Oh, man, what an honor to have the absolute best guard in the NFL, Chris Lindstrom. Great to meet you here. How's life? You look good. You don't look like somebody that's just been, bashing skulls in the trenches for a couple months already.
Well, you're too nice, and super excited to be on. And just, the season's flying by. I think part of it, too, is just the culture we got here, makes football fun and coming to work every day and, working as hard as we can. And, I'm super fortunate. We got probably the best room in the world and some of the best guys in the world to work with. So the fact I get to be with them every day, I'm just happy as can be.
I mean, I think from afar, people, they probably remember you getting drafted, right? 14th overall in 2019. And we see the big contract, a record-setting contract. And I guess what kind of got me thinking more about you in depth was sitting down with Terry Fontenot at the Combine in Indy, and he referred to you as the tip of the spear for this entire team. You go 24/7, 1,000%. It sounds like the Atlanta Falcons want to be a complete reflection of everything that you represent. What is that, you think? Like, what how do you define yourself, your game, and why do you think your boss would kind of refer to you in those terms?
I everything I do, I just try and give everything I can for the guys around me. And so I know with the 10 guys in the huddle that they can look at me and know I'm giving them everything. And, if I get beat or something like that, they know I'm giving my absolute effort and preparation and, my approach to it, to, caring for one of them. And that's the biggest thing that I try and go about. And so that kind of dictates the way I go about working myself, is because I always want to be there for the guys around me. And, especially with Drew and Caleb and the guys I work with on every single play, but then also, the other guys in the huddle. And so that just kind of dictates the preparation and the way I go about trying to play.
How would you describe your style of play?
I just try and finish as much as I can and give maximum effort. I love running the wide zone. I'm super fortunate that I was able to get into a system and then also have some pretty incredible coaches and really kind of be able to master the small details of wide zone and just be able to showcase getting off the ball, getting to my landmarks and stuff like that. And I'm incredibly fortunate, too, to have a O-line coach in Dwayne Ledford that all he does is breathe confidence into us. And it's been really great as a player, because the more confidence you can get, the more free you are mentally, the faster and faster you can play. So I just try and play as fast as I can.
Man, you mentioned that wide zone, so you can get a little head of steam. I encourage everybody watch the mic'd up videos of Chris here, and that thud when you smash into somebody. I mean, I can feel it through the screen. That's got to make football fun. I imagine if you're going to play on the line, if you can get a few steps and kind of see that bullseye, get a running start, that's football, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And, Coach Ledford's the biggest proponent of, the Bruce Lee quote of one kick 10,000 times. And so, we're in practice and individual. We practice those combination blocks on the wide zone. I mean, probably, close to 50 to 100 times a week. And so we have so many reps of that and working with each other. And so when you do get those sweet spots, you hit it. And it's almost, I feel, now granted, I would strike out 1,000 times over, but it has to be what a baseball player feels like when they're timing, if they're behind a pitch or, ahead of it. and then when they get it right. And so we do those combinations so many times that we have such a good rhythm with each other of, hey, I was a little wide there. Hey, it was a little tight there. And it really is working with each other. And when you get those sweet spots, man, does it feel good? Like you feel the weight shift to the back of their heels, and you feel like you caught them. There's no better feeling.
Can you just like take us through a play, like a wide zone play from like you're in the huddle, a play is called up to the line of scrimmage, looking at the defense, like what from start to finish, what does it really look like?
Yeah, you're in the huddle, and then Kirk does a great job giving the formation cadence and everything like that. Bray get up to the ball, and we do a really good job in the preparation, knowing the looks we're going to get. And so always the first thing to do is kind of set up those looks, see, what combination we're going to work with. And both Drew Dahlman and Ryan Newsel have been awesome all season of pointing out, who we're going to. And the next thing is, all right, we're going to there. How are we getting there? And so do I have help? Do I have not have help? And then the way I look at wide zone, everything is angles. Like, how are you getting to your linebacker? So, like, do you have leverage? Do you not have leverage? And the more leverage you have, the more vertical you can take the combination. So if we got like a guy in the A gap and a backer's more stacked over the center, just try and go as vertical as possible to kind of create the dent in the defense there. Where if I'm out leveraged with the linebacker, you have to go a little bit thinner. So it's kind of I had a coach in college who was like, you want to paint the X. And so like you almost like pick your spot. And so kind of think in my head where the conjunction point is going to be between me and the linebacker, or me and the defensive lineman, and kind of try and beat them to the spot.
Wow. Yeah. So there is a lot of quickness and agility. I mean, you've got to get to a spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the way I think of it is, you have your landmark. So like where you're aiming for. If you have a down lineman, and so you want to get to that aiming point, not be past it, don't be short. And that just comes with practice and then kind of seeing that guy's stance. And then with the linebackers, it's kind of a guessing game. You kind of see the way they play, and then you kind of paint it. And then you kind of make adjustments based off the way they play.
So, I mean, like you said, if you're comparing it to baseball, it would be, Aaron Judge making contact with the fastball. Like what is the quintessential Chris Lindstrom hit? Like which one or two are you most proud of when you had it lined up perfectly and you were able to connect?
Yeah, I love our combination with the center when we have a 3 technique and the linebacker, and I'm able to get the landmark, press it on an angle, stretch it, and then the center comes over and he hits it, and we almost have like a sixth sense with each other of I'm driving it on the angle, I feel him hit it, and at the same time he hits it, I try and lock my inside hand. And you really get you can sometimes eject those guys. Other times you try and get stretch and kind of keep them in the gap. But, when you really hit it right, you kind of get them on their heels and try and finish it. And then the other one I would say is on the backside. I love cutting linebackers. I know it's still legal inside the box. And so just getting the angle, throwing a hand, spinning that 3 technique so Caleb can cut them off, getting the angle, and then cutting those linebackers, because so many of them do such a good job coming downhill and hitting you in the chin. And so sometimes it's a lot easier to cut them and to slow them down a little bit than it is to, get chin checked by one of these linebackers.
Can you list off a victim or two, or and any that we should, go on to NFL Plus, the archives, and look up here?
I don't know off the top of my head any exact, but I try and do it weekly. It's just kind of a part of what we do, and with Coach Ledford, we practice it a lot, and kind of the details of cutting and stuff like that.
So, like, when did you really fall in love with football?
From an early age. My dad was he played in the NFL and then retired, and then started coaching high school football. He took a break from football for probably 10 years after retiring, and my older brother's like 8 years older than me, so he was playing football and coaching him, and so I'd always help him be like the equipment guy for the high school team all growing up. And so I just kind of fell in love with football then, sitting on training camp making forts with like the pads and stuff like that, and then got the opportunity to play in 6th grade. I started, and then kind of haven't looked back since.
So 6th grade, it wasn't. I guess that's pretty normal. I mean, you could maybe put on the pads in 3rd grade. I think that's when I did it, but maybe that's not allowed anymore. I'm a little older. We had bowling.
No, I think so. I was a little late. The beautiful thing about football, I think too, is you can play at a young age. You can pick it up in middle school, and then you see, some of these really good athletes, tight ends or basketball players that pick it up their junior, senior year of high school, and boom, they can make it because, it's not one of those things where, if you can't wrestle, you're not going to make the Olympics or Penn State in a year.
At the same time though, like there always is that moment. I love asking guys, like, you realize this is for me or it's not for me. Like there's a hit and drill in, a dog day of August camp. And I don't know, was there a turning point for you? I know your whole family was in football, obviously, but when did you realize, man, I love the trenches. I love the contact. I can just bully people and have fun doing it.
I think high school football was really fun. You're just with kids you grew up with, and then you're playing, having a blast. And I think that's really the most pure version of football. You're just with your friends having fun. But I think really when it transitioned to college at BC, Coach Adazio, I loved him, and he's been so crucial in helping me in my career. We had really hard practices at BC, and I was like, you know what, I do really love this, as hard as it is. I love the approach of going to get better every single day. And, especially as a young kid, young freshman, getting your butt kicked isn't always fun, but you kind of learn the lessons from it. And I was really fortunate to have people always kind of teaching the small details in things as I was growing. But I kind of always loved the process of getting better.
So you got your butt kicked in college?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I was 260. I came into BC at like 235. I had a good program that got me up to 260. And fortunately, my dad, he was a stiff defensive end on the outside, 6'7", like stiff DN. And he goes, no, you're going to play O-line. Like your defensive line dreams die in high school. You're going to play O-line.
Well, I just heard over my shoulder, my 3-year-old son woke up from his nap. He does like eating. He likes snacking throughout the day. Are you saying we should encourage this? Should we steer him toward the offensive line? Because I don't know, at some point, like you're 230, you're going to college. There might be part of you thinking, man, I don't know if I want to just put on 40, 50, 60 pounds. Like I kind of like how I look here. I mean, there's a personal element to that all.
Yeah, for sure. Every offensive lineman, like, I'll just do our O-line, for example. Like, Jake was a quarterback, basketball player, and then his dad's like, no, you're going to go play left tackle. And so Caleb went into Washington as a D lineman, and he transitioned over. So all of us were all athletes at other spots. Then they're like, hey, you're not going to make it to the next level. So why don't we come over to O-line? And so we're kind of like the misfit toys. And, yeah, definitely love each other. Keep feeding them, let them have fun doing all the other positions, and then offensive line is a calling. It'll just come for them.
Maybe it'll be full circle. Yeah, Sonny will stretch out, and then college will come around, and we'll put him on the Chris Lindstrom plan. Like, so what are you eating? Like, how are you putting on that kind of weight?
It's definitely evolved. I mean, when I was in college, it was like chicken parm subs and like fries at the late night dinner. But
I mean, that's pretty sweet. Like, you're obviously working your ass off. You're training, you're lifting, but I don't know. That's kind of nice that's part of it all to become a lineman. Just chicken parm subs.
Yeah, for sure. And those for real shakes. But I think it's one of those things where you kind of really learn and evolve, and your constant education process, and especially here at the Falcons, the nutritional and people always talk about like what it takes to be a pro, and I think nutrition is one of those aspects. And he's been really evolving to, calorie intake. And I'm not as disciplined as, some guys are chicken and rice and broccoli every single day. God bless them. I know how they enjoy. Yeah, I got to enjoy something. But, I when it's time to work hard, really hard with it. But then, I'm not denying a brownie sundae or something like that either. So it's kind of like one of those balance. But I really do think it was a continuing education on it.
So you're kind of getting batted around as a freshman just because you're lighter than those upperclassmen?
Yeah, for sure. And then just trying to feel like when you go to college football, it's almost like your world's turned upside down. You're doing classes harder than you ever have in your life. And then, you're doing the workouts physically, being really challenged. And then you realize that you know nothing about football when you're a freshman in college. And so really fundamental football education. And then, so you slowly start learning that knowledge. And so the more and more knowledge you can learn, I know they always say the game slows down, but it's really just you kind of understand things, you see things, and then kind of able to pre-play stuff a little bit.
Any guards that you would, or linemen, anybody in general that you would study as you're kind of taking this a little bit more seriously? Imagine at BC, you played with AJ Dillon, right? He would have been.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we've had AJ on here too. He's great. So it's getting a little more serious year to year, putting on that weight, putting on that muscle. The NFL is a realistic thing. Like, who are you studying?
The two guys I'd say I studied a lot were Zach Martin. Obviously, he's going to be a Hall of Famer, and Zach is somebody I love watching. I think he's probably got one of the best pass sets of any guard I've ever seen. He's always consistent, always putting himself in a good spot. And then the other one was, growing up in New England, being at BC, watched a lot of Patriots games, and Joe Tooney was there, and he went to NC State, ACC guy, so I was kind of just following his career and seeing the way he played with New England, and then now getting to watch him with the Chiefs all the time. Joe's a really good player.
What's the mentality that is demanded of a guard like yourself going out there for, 60, 70 plays a game? Those D linemen, they're cycling in, they're fresh a lot of the time, and you're out there for these long drives. And football is really preserved at the line of scrimmage. They can change all the rules they want. They can try to make it quote unquote safe, even though football will never be safe. But it's real football where you play. So mentally, like how do you attack your profession, play in and play out?
Yeah, Alex Mack gave me great advice when I was a rookie, and then my second year he's like, offensive linemen are evaluated on consistency. There's no stat. There's no there's no flash play that you can make. Your consistency is what matters. He really talks about how mentally, almost like RPMs on a car, like you don't want to be redlining mentally because you're not thinking, you're making mistakes, you're going too hard, you're putting yourself in jeopardy. So he kind of always said, like, at a 1 to 10, your focus and like intensity should really be at like a 7, where you're very physically into it, but then you're also thinking clear mentally, and kind of getting into that flow state. But then also, a lot of the habits I think are built up in practice where you're finishing blocks, running to pick up the ball carrier, stuff like that are all things we drill in practice. So it almost becomes a part of your identity, necessarily where you're not thinking about doing those things. They're just, they're kind of naturally occurring just the way you play.
But how do you stay consistent and composed and level-headed when it's a fist fight? Really, it's when you really zoom in and listen to those collisions, and you're going against somebody, there's gonna be some animosity that builds throughout the course of a game. Like I mentioned Richie Incognito before we hit record. He has a few screws loose. He'd be the first to tell you. And I'm thinking back to the old days, Kyle Turley just ripping a helmet off and tossing it down the field. You're so measured and composed out there. That cannot be easy when you're just brawling with somebody and you're going to get pissed off at this guy. I imagine as nice and gentile as you may be here, you get pissed off in that fist fight, I'd imagine.
Yeah, for sure. There's like a violent intensity and an urgency that you're playing. And I think that's part of the job is, you're trying to finish guys. And there's a couple of times where, you talk about hearing those hits. There's a couple of times where you feel that hit and you go, oh my God, that guy is like, you see power on tape and usually you can kind of judge. And then there's sometimes when a guy puts his hands on you, you're like, oh my, like this guy is bringing it. Yeah, I think there's a baseline of, you really make me think about it. Cause like there really is like, a violence and a explosion and a power in a style of playing where you are playing with that anger, you're playing with that passion. But then in the same sense, like I think you almost have to, you're naturally that, and then you try and pull that back a little bit because you don't want penalties, you don't want to make mistakes. And so like almost not naturally, but you kind of train that explosion and ferocity, and then you're able to also think, where if like you don't train that way and then you go out there and go and play and you're trying to do that different, I think that would lead to more mistakes. So it's like, and it's the same way in individual in practice. We're attacking with that same mindset. Obviously, you're not trying to put guys to the ground and hurt anybody, but the same way in practice, you're playing with that intensity.
Have you always been able to control your emotions and your intensity and just not lose it? Have you ever just gone ballistic, out football or otherwise?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And it's something you learn. And there's sometimes I get fired up. It's not like I'm a robot out there. I go, especially you get one of these drives like, or Tyler Algier has one of these big runs, like where he's finishing guys, and you can't not get excited. You love football, and you watch Tyler or Bijan make a guy miss, or as a unit, we have one of these drives where, hey, we're moving the ball down the field, we're running the ball at our will. You get fired up, and our O-line coach is awesome. We're pushing each other on the sideline and screaming and yelling, and so there's definitely a passion and an energy there. So yeah, without a doubt.
But you harness it. I mean, you're not kidding. Chris has mentioned it, but you didn't have a holding penalty in your career until the 16th game of your 4th season, and it was a bullshit penalty. You shouldn't have got flagged, right? It was a phantom flag. Really, I'm not just saying. I went back like, where's the flag here? Like that's insane. I mean, especially you watch football today, and there's just flags after every play. How did you go that long without a holding penalty?
I have no idea. It kind of just happened, and then I feel like once the dam broke, I've gotten like 3 since then. So it's like, but yeah, I just think just trying to refit my hands constantly, hands out of the framework, and then just trying to constantly get them back in the chest, and then knowing it's almost an art form when you feel a guy disengage and you feel him, you try and keep everything in the cylinder. And so when that guy gets out of there, your hands drift out of here, you got to let him go, or he's trying to disengage. You got to push. You can't pull. And then there's kind of that fine balance with it.
Who's the hardest to get underneath and get your hands on? I guess just who's the toughest D lineman that you've ever tried to block?
Yeah, there's a couple that come to mind. Aaron Donald, obviously. I know he's retired now, but I mean, he was one of those guys where I felt like he was working a second move before you reacted to his first one, and he always had those counters. Was powerful, explosive, and could really twitch off the ball. I mean, you can't say enough great things about him. And then Chris Jones, and then Dexter Lawrence and Derek Brown, I think, are the 3 other guys that kind of really come to mind. Chris is such a good pass rusher in the way he uses his hands. He's so long and big and strong, but on top of that, he can really work your edge. He can dip his hips and kind of get around. And so long, he can really affect the quarterback. And then Derek and Dexter are just both so powerful and explosive in what they can do, and disruptive in the way they are as players, because both of them are, there's big, powerful guys, but those guys are playing almost every single snap. Which is a testament to them and them being able to chase down the ball and stuff like that.
Yeah, you would have had Chris Jones just, last month. Mm-hmm. He just got it. It does seem like he can play possum too. Like you might not hear from Chris Jones for a quarter or two, and then there it is, 3rd and long. He's sliding along the line, and he just, how do some guys like that just have that ability, game on the line, to turn it on, make a play? That's got to make it that much tougher too. And there's just like a baller element to some of these guys.
Yeah, we always talk about like the gotta have it situations, and that's part of it. Being an old lineman, you got to be aware and not get lulled to sleep. And those guys, they always, everybody's go-to move is different. Some guys swim over, some guys will pull you and push pull, and some guys can do it all. And so I think when you can sometimes feel the intensity in guys when they put their weight in their hand. You go, okay, this rep's gonna be a little bit different than the others. But yeah, I think that's what makes them great, and what makes them special is those impact moments throughout the game. They're always there.
Can you kind of describe your personal flow state too? I love hearing athletes kind of dive into that word, because it is a real thing where you're almost kind of I don't know, like is it like your subconscious where you're playing out there, but you're not thinking, you're not overanalyzing, you're just, it's like your mind is outside of your body in a way, kind of controlling it. Like your flow state, how would you describe it?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's almost being in a rhythm, and I think you're not showing up to the first play of the game in a flow state. I think so. Part of it is team success, and I think with offensive line play, it's consistently moving the football first. So keeping the chains manageable, always being in good situations. You're never going to be in a flow state if you're constantly in 3rd and 11 as an offensive line. So I think really that's the first part of it. And then just being assignment sound, the technique, and then you feel like you're feeling it, like you're hitting the combinations like we talked about earlier. Like you hit those combinations 1, 2, 3 times in a row where you're like, man, I really fit that good. The communication's good. And then you have a sense where, like, as offensive linemen, we do so much preparation for pressures and blitzes and line movements. And I think part of that flow state is like you can see it happening, and you don't even know, like, it just comes to your brain. You're like, really, like small things, like a guy's hand or his little bit of a weight, or, he's a little bit tighter than he normally is, and you can make those calls. And I feel like that's really kind of that moment where, like, you feel a twist game where, like, the 3 techniques working out, and it's like you can really tell the difference subconsciously of, is he rushing me wide or is he working out to the tackle and there's a blitz coming the other side, and you can kind of make those split decisions pretty quickly and have it be right. And so I kind of say that's really the flow state.
Is the flow state something that you've read about, like researched? I don't know. How do you kind of get to that place?
I just read like the Angela Duckworth book on grit, and so kind of the grit and determination and working on things, and she kind of talked about it in there, and then you kind of feel it, and you see other athletes talk about the visualization of what it is, and so I kind of think that's really what it is for offensive line. When you're seeing things, you're hitting your strides, you're hitting your landmarks. Obviously, you're playing well, you're being violent in your technique and stuff like that, but then also the game really kind of slows down.
When you became the richest lineman in NFL history, or guard, I should say, right? 5 years, 102.5 mil. How many people did you hear from? I mean, your phone just had to have been a disaster. Is it everybody coming out of the woodworks, like people you didn't even know from your 7th grade biology class?
No, I have great people in my life, and I'm incredibly fortunate for how this all shook out. Like, I never in a million years could have imagined that I'd at one point be the highest paid guard in the league for a year, and it was like it doesn't feel real. And again, I just have incredible people in my life who are really happy for me. The guys in the building were amazing, and then the same thing, like, talk about it organizationally. It's just like to be able to stay here in Atlanta, to be here with Terry and now Raheem, and it's really great. I mean, I love this organization. I love being a part of this team and our offensive line unit, and so it really is a dream and something that I absolutely never take for granted.
I think you said that you bought a tractor, right? A John Deere. Was it the first big purchase?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, for sure. I was renting down here in Georgia. Just like I didn't know where to live my first 2 years, so I was renting. And then I was like, all right, then I only have 2 years left on my deal. So I bought a house down here, staying here in Georgia. And then, I bought a tractor. Kind of always wanted one. And I was like, you know what, now's the time. I'm going to get that, throw the snowblower on it next week when the bye week comes on, and be ready to go for the off season.
What, snowblower down there?
Oh, no. I go back to
for back. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
But I loved how you put it too. Like there's not a better place in the world than having those headphones on when you're mowing a lawn. Isn't that the truth? Like I just love just kind of, maybe we've got a few kids too at this point, so it is kind of nice to have a couple hours out there. But it is. What do you love about that world when you just got the headphones in and you're mowing a lawn? Yeah, between the lawnmower or like working a leaf blower, we just have that vibrating noise, probably causing hearing loss, but we'll worry about that later. I think it's just so peaceful. You just sit there, relax. You're kind of in your own world, have your thoughts, throw in a good audio book or a podcast, and really kind of just relax and sit there and there. And that's why I love it. I know Jake, I'm going to throw him under the bus too. I know he sits there in the off season. He's got his ranch down in Texas, and he'll get in his tractor and go and just mow the lawn and just have the best day. So I don't know what it is, but there's got to be something subconsciously where you're just at peace there, almost meditating. Totally. I mean, and what audiobooks or podcasts have really kind of captivated you of late?
I did. If I do the reading, like my favorite authors doing like the Ryan Holiday series, or I'm a huge Drew Dahlman got me into. He's a massive reader, and I'm very new to reading. But he got me into like the Agatha Christie, like Hercule Poirot series. So I read all of those books. And then, with podcasts, mostly the comedy ones. I'll do like Two Bears, One Cave, something like that, Kill Tony, something like that, just to get a couple laughs and relax.
Totally. Yeah, you gotta kind of turn off the brain too. That's the thing. I love a good audible, and it's great, but you really do have to be focused. That's why I always kind of revert back to Corolla, because it's like you can pay attention, but you can laugh as well.
Right.
So just to wrap it up here with the Falcons, you mentioned it there. You've been through so much, different
Mhm.
coaches, quarterbacks, regimes. Does it feel like everything in 2024 is finally coming together? With Kirk Cousins at quarterback, Raheem as your head coach, Terry. What kind of structure do you have to really finally get over the hump there?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's so much belief in this team. There's adversity that we've had to go through in games this season, and we've come through on the other side and believing in one another. We get in those situations. I think there's a real confidence that we can win, and that's really reassuring. And then you see guys like Kirk, the preparation that he puts in and week out, to be at his best only makes everybody else better. And he's kind of had those experiences across the league. Same thing with Raheem. He's won a Super Bowl with the Rams. He knows what it looks like. And all he does is breathe confidence into guys, breathe confidence into the team. And when things don't go right, he's the same person day in and day out. And so, like, that's something you take for granted. You don't take for granted, I'm sorry. It's just like we have so many people who are just genuinely themselves every single day. And so that makes it great. We're not riding, we're not up and down. We're just kind of staying, we are who we are, and that doesn't change. And so we're just constantly working to get better as a team. Obviously disappointed we let one go last week, but that doesn't deter anybody. That doesn't even change the mood in the building. It's just all focus is for Denver on Sunday.
And just how has Kirk elevated things? Like when this offense is humming. I mean, that Thursday night game, that was one of the most fun games we've seen all year. He's just scoring at will. Boy, what makes him special as a quarterback that maybe he's kind of gone a little underappreciated through his career, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about, like, I'll talk about what makes him special in relation to us with the O-line, because I don't understand the rest of the world. Is just like his communication in detail on thing and the preparation that he goes through for these play calls feel like a paragraph sometimes, and he is on it. He almost never makes a mistake with it. And it's so incredibly impressive with the work he puts in that. And the same thing is, he understands the challenges that we face up front. And so, he's not saying the snap count once, he's saying it twice in the huddle. He's really re-emphasizing those little details that sometimes might go to the wayside when you're tired and, you're on the 10th play. So he really kind of focuses you in, dials you in on it. And then also, like, he sees things as a veteran quarterback, is getting it right, making great decisions. And that's when people talk about, like, the leadership and experience. It's all those small things. Like we did the 2-minute drill versus the Eagles. He came in there right away with a confidence and a plan, was like, hey, they're going to rush hard. I'm going to get this ball out. And he did the first couple, and then we were just efficient. And you could really see as an offense, we were just moving the ball and just really dialed in on the cadence and stuff like that.
That's a great point. Like something small like that. He just kind of plant it in your mind to know, okay, here's how they're going to rush. Here's what we're going to do. No panic, no stress. Let's go.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
And it just, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, it's just like those are the things where he's learned it over time and learned it through experience. And we know it, and we have, full confidence and trust in him that he's getting us right. And so we're ready to go.
Raheem, Terry, it seems like everybody points to you. Like we want everybody in the building approaching this job like Chris Lindstrom here. So what are those little things that you're doing, you think, that can become contagious behind the scenes as you guys kind of head down the stretch?
One that's always really nice to hear, but I just try and do what's asked of me, and then just like focusing on the details of what my job is. And so for the run game, just try and be as dialed as I can be for the run game. Pass, make sure I understand all the looks and preparation and work through those with guys. And then those guys know when we step in the line and step in the huddle that they're getting everything I got, and they know I'm finishing as hard as I can, playing as hard as I can. And and we'll do anything for those guys to watch them succeed and to have us win.
Chris, thanks so much for hanging out. This was awesome, kind of diving into your world here. So yeah, best of luck the rest of the season, and hopefully we can meet in person down there at some point.
Yeah, I appreciate it so much. This was awesome, and let me know when you're coming down. I'd love to see you.
Hell yeah, absolutely, and make sure you give my buddy Justin Felder hell. I think he's at the Fox station. We worked together in Green Bay once upon a time. Great dude, but yeah, just give him shit, for something.
Yeah, for sure, without a doubt, I'll have to give him a hard time.
Hey, thanks, Chris.
All right, appreciate it.